Papua New Guinea, an ancient weaving technique using just 3 simple materials, is actually gaining popularity and teaching us powerful lessons about sustainability.
That's fascinating. What makes this particular craft so resilient in our modern world?
Well, it's all about these remarkable bags called Bilums. The women weavers create them using only dried natural fibers, powder, and a needle. What's incredible is that while major manufacturers struggle with supply chain issues and environmental impacts, these craftswomen have maintained a zero-waste, locally sourced production method for generations.
You know what's really interesting about that? In our world of complex manufacturing, this kind of simplicity seems almost revolutionary.
Exactly. And here's what's really mind-blowing. These traditional methods are actually solving problems that our modern industries are still grappling with. The Bilum weavers have perfected a sustainable production system that creates virtually no waste, requires no electricity, and produces items that are both beautiful and biodegradable.
That makes me think about how archaeological findings show us similar patterns of sustainability in ancient cultures. I recently learned something fascinating about wooden artifacts. Care to guess why we find so few of them?
I imagine they decomposed over time.
Well, that's part of it. But here's the surprising thing. Our ancestors actually burned their worn-out wooden items as fuel. Nothing went to waste, which is why we find so many more clay objects in archaeological sites. They're practically indestructible.
That's such a powerful contrast to our modern throwaway culture. And you know what's really interesting? We're seeing similar principles of resource utilization in other traditional crafts too, like the yarn winding tools that have been used in Korea since the country's liberation.
How do these different traditional crafting methods compare in terms of their environmental impact?
Well, what's fascinating is that whether we're looking at Bilum weaving in PNG, yarn winding in Korea, or ancient wooden utensils, they all share this fundamental principle of working in harmony with available resources. These craftspeople understood something we're only now rediscovering, that sustainable production doesn't require complex technology.
You know, that really challenges our modern assumption that newer always means better.
Exactly right. And here's what's particularly striking. These traditional crafts aren't just surviving, they're actually gaining relevance. The Bilum weaving technique, for instance, has become a model for sustainable production methods. Each bag represents centuries of refined knowledge about local materials and environmental conditions.
That makes me wonder about the broader implications for our approach to manufacturing and sustainability.
Well, consider this. While we're investing billions in developing new green technologies, these traditional craftspeople have already solved many of the problems we're facing. They've developed methods that are carbon neutral, use renewable materials, and create products that naturally return to the earth at the end of their life cycle.
So essentially, these ancient practices might hold the key to our future sustainability challenges.
Precisely, and it goes beyond just environmental impact. These crafts preserve cultural knowledge, maintain community connections, and demonstrate how traditional wisdom can address modern challenges. The Bilum weavers aren't just making bags, they're showing us a path toward more sustainable production methods. Transformed from royal entertainment to a technological revolution might surprise you.
That's fascinating, and it really starts with Duke Augustus of Brunswick, doesn't it? He wasn't just any chess enthusiast, but one of Europe's most educated rulers who created the first German-language chess book.
You know what's really interesting about Duke Augustus? He discovered chess during his travels through Italy as a young prince, and became so obsessed that he started building this incredible collection of chess books from this Augsburg merchant, Philipp Heinhofer. The famous Bibliotheca Augusta in Wolfenbüttel still stands as a testament to his intellectual legacy.
So what sparked this transformation from royal pastime to something more accessible?
Well, it's actually pretty remarkable. By writing his chess book in German instead of Latin, Duke Augustus made chess knowledge available to a much broader audience. It was like the medieval equivalent of creating an app that teaches chess suddenly. You didn't need to be part of the educated elite to learn the game.
That's such an interesting parallel to how technology keeps making chess more accessible. Speaking of which, those Victorian-era innovations really changed everything, didn't they?
Oh man, the Fattorini chess clock is exactly what I wanted to talk about. This incredible piece of engineering from the late 1880s completely revolutionized how chess was played. Picture this heavy wrought iron base with twin clocks mounted on top, using pendulums as the driving mechanism.
And these weren't just any timepieces, they were precision instruments that transformed tournament play, right?
Exactly. Before the Fattorini clock, chess matches could theoretically go on forever. But here's what's fascinating. These clocks were so precisely balanced that they could keep accurate time even in the heat of tournament play. The pendulum mechanism was absolutely brilliant. When one clock was running, it sat horizontally, and players would just tilt it to stop their time.
That's such a clever solution for its time. Though I have to laugh about those Victorian-era travel chess sets.
Oh man, those are hilarious by today's standards. These metal boxes were so heavy and bulky, you'd practically need a porter to carry them. But you know what's interesting? They actually tell us a lot about Victorian values, this emphasis on durability and craftsmanship, even if it meant sacrificing practicality.
Well, it really shows how each era put its own stamp on the game, doesn't it?
Absolutely fascinating, and what's even more interesting is how these innovations built upon each other. The standardization that the Fanarini clock brought to chess made international tournaments possible, which then created the need for those travel sets. However impractical they might seem to us now.
That's such a great point about how everything's connected. The technology really shaped the culture of chess.
And here's something mind-blowing to consider. We've gone from Duke Augustus spending a fortune collecting chess books to having more chess knowledge than he could imagine available on our phones. The contrast is just incredible when you think about it.
That really puts things in perspective, from German manuscripts to Victorian engineering to digital platforms.
You know what fascinates me most? Through all these changes, from royal courts to Victorian parlors to today's online tournaments, chess has kept its essential character, while continuously adapting to new eras and technologies. It's like this constant thread running through history, picking up innovations but never losing its core appeal.
That's exactly why these stories matter. They're not just about chess, they're about how society itself transforms while keeping certain traditions alive.
Looking toward the future, it makes you wonder what's next. Will artificial intelligence and virtual reality create another revolution in how we experience and learn chess? Just as Duke Augustus democratized chess knowledge with his German language book? Throughout history, humans have created miniature worlds that cost more than actual palaces, like this 17th century dollhouse that required hiring specialized artisans from across Europe just to craft a tiny cabinet. Today, we're exploring 3 incredible artifacts that show just how far people will go in pursuit of perfection.
You know what fascinates me about these pieces? They each represent the absolute peak of craftsmanship for their time, from ancient Korea to Golden Age Netherlands to early 20th century Italy.
Let's start with that remarkable 6th century Silla dynasty crown. Unlike other Korean royal crowns from that era, this one features 4 tiers of branch ornaments, instead of the usual 3, kind of like the medieval equivalent of adding extra chrome to your car.
That's an interesting comparison. These weren't just decorative pieces, though they represented divine authority and required incredibly precise metalworking techniques that we're still studying today.
Well, speaking of precise techniques, let's fast forward to the Dutch Golden Age and this absolutely mind-blowing dollhouse commissioned by Petronella Ortman between 1686 and 1710. What makes it extraordinary is that every single item had to be made from authentic materials, no plastic or shortcuts allowed.
That level of detail must have cost a fortune. You mentioned the cabinet, can you tell us more about that?
Oh man, so get this. They actually brought in a specialized French cabinet maker who was working in Amsterdam just to create this tiny tortoiseshell cabinet with pewter inlays. The level of precision required to work at that scale is just, well, it's absolutely insane.
And this wasn't just some fancy toy, it was basically a 3-dimensional art piece that showcased the height of Dutch craftsmanship during their golden age.
Exactly right. And you know what's really interesting? These dollhouses were actually more expensive than some real houses at the time. They were status symbols that wealthy women used to demonstrate their taste and understanding of proper household management.
That really puts things in perspective. And then we jump forward to 1907 with the Villa Giuseppe Faccanoni, another example of pushing boundaries, but in architecture.
Right. So architect Giuseppe Sommaruga was working at this fascinating moment when traditional architecture was evolving into what we now call Art Nouveau, or Liberty style in Italy. He used different types of stone, including ashlar, in ways that were pretty revolutionary for the time.
You know what connects all these pieces? They each required this perfect alignment of wealthy patron, skilled craftsmen, and artistic vision.
That's exactly right. Like, the Silla crown needed not just gold and craftsmanship, but also the royal authority to commission such an important symbol of power. Petronella Ortman needed both the wealth and artistic vision to create her miniature masterpiece. And Giuseppe Faccanoni had to trust Sommaruga's innovative architectural approach.
Well, it makes you wonder about how differently these pieces were viewed in their own time versus how we see them today in museums.
Yeah, that's fascinating because for the Silla royalty, the crown was this intense symbol of divine authority and political power. For Petronella, the dollhouse was both a display of wealth and a creative outlet. And for Faccanoni, the villa was a statement about modern architectural possibilities.
So how do these pieces continue to influence artists and creators today?
Well, the Silla crown's design still influences modern Korean art and jewelry. The dollhouse has become this invaluable resource for historians, studying everything from furniture design to textile patterns. And the Villa Faccanoni continues to inspire architects exploring mixed materials.
These pieces really show us how human creativity finds different expressions across time and culture, while sharing this common thread of pushing boundaries.
You know what's really wild? Recent studies of the Silla crown's construction techniques have revealed metalworking methods that we didn't even know existed in the 6th century. It's like these artifacts are still teaching us new things about human innovation and creativity, centuries or even millennia later. More than any other discovery in history, wheat's impact on society is actually bigger than the wheel, writing, or even the internet.
That's such a fascinating perspective, especially when you look at these detailed scientific illustrations of Triticum aestivum. The way they break down its structure really tells the story of our agricultural evolution.
Well, what's really mind-blowing is how this single plant triggered the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to settled communities. You know, archaeologists have found evidence of wheat cultivation dating back more than 10,000 years in the Fertile Crescent.
Speaking of scientific documentation, I'm struck by how we've evolved from basic wheat drawings to these incredible false color images of Mercury from NASA's Messenger mission. How do you see these different visualization techniques connecting?
Oh man, that's exactly what I find fascinating. We've got these meticulous botanical illustrations showing every detail of wheat structure, and then we're using similar principles to analyze the chemical composition of a planet millions of miles away. The technology has changed, but the fundamental drive to understand remains the same.
And these herbarium sheets from Antonio Cremona Casoli's collection seem to bridge that gap between old and new scientific methods.
You know what's incredible about those herbarium specimens? They've actually helped scientists track climate change by comparing flowering times across centuries. Some collections date back to the 1700s, giving us this amazing timeline of botanical changes.
That really shows how scientific documentation serves multiple purposes beyond its original intent.
Right, and here's something that'll blow your mind. Modern wheat genetics research has revealed that today's bread wheat is actually the result of 3 different ancient grass species combining their DNA. It's like nature did its own genetic engineering experiment thousands of years ago.
Well, that explains why these botanical illustrations are so detailed. They're basically mapping out one of the most complex plant genomes we know of.
Exactly, and speaking of complex imaging, that false color Mercury photo uses specific wavelengths to reveal different mineral compositions. Scientists can literally read the planet's geological history through these color variations, just like we can read wheat's evolutionary history through its cellular structures.
So it's really about making the invisible visible, whether we're looking at microscopic plant structures or planetary surfaces.
And here's what's really fascinating: we're still making new discoveries about wheat using these various methods. Recent studies using advanced imaging techniques have identified previously unknown proteins that could help develop more resilient crop varieties.
That's incredible how these different approaches to scientific documentation keep building on each other.
Yeah, and it's not just about the science. These methods tell us about human history too. Like, variations in wheat genetics have helped archaeologists track ancient trade routes and migration patterns. Each grain of wheat is literally carrying the story of human civilization in its DNA.
The way you put that really brings home how interconnected all these scientific methods are, from basic observation to advanced genetic analysis.
And looking toward the future, these combined approaches are becoming even more crucial. Scientists are using everything from traditional breeding knowledge to satellite imaging to develop wheat varieties that can withstand climate change. It's like we're writing the next chapter in this 10,000-year partnership between humans and wheat.
That really brings us full circle, from those first farmers selecting the best wheat plants to today's scientists using space-age technology to ensure its future.